Welcome back to Paradise. It's a beautiful day here, but we need to talk about medical insurance. I've touched on this on a previous video, but if you're looking to move here to Dubai and one of the things that you're planning to do is set up your own business where your business sponsors your residency and your Emirates ID, you have to have medical insurance. Now, if you're coming from the UK, obviously we have the NHS. This concept of paying for medical insurance is a little weird to get your head around with co-pays and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go through all the details that you need to know. And I'm also going to go through the final quote that I just received yesterday to be covered comprehensively. And that is including my pre-existing medical condition, something called sickle cell anemia. Okay, so before we get into the fact that there is no social healthcare here in the UAE, I want to make it clear who this video is for. So this video is going to be for anyone who is setting up a business here. So you're setting up your business and your business is going to sponsor you. If you are an employee in a business, i.e. you're moving over on a work contract, your employer is likely going to cover your medical insurance and you'll have that as part of your package. So you'll be part of a group scheme. You don't have to worry about anything that I'm going to talk about here in this video. But if you are like me, you've come up here, you've moved, and you are set up your own business, you need to sponsor your own medical insurance, this is what you kind of need to know. Now, there is no social healthcare in Dubai. There is no personal tax, so it can't be funded from a tax take, essentially. So you've got to fend for yourself when it comes to your medical insurance. Now, this isn't something that I would say I overlooked. I knew that I needed medical insurance, but back in the UK, it's really, really hard to get a quote, a definitive quote on how much medical insurance is going to be if you have a pre-existing medical condition. The reason for that is, in order for you to get an actual final quote like I did yesterday, they need your Emirates ID, your residence visa, and you're not going to have that until you've made the jump. So if you do have a pre-existing medical condition, I think it's really important to try and prepare yourself for what is going to be or could be an expensive medical insurance premium. It depends on the medical conditions and what your pre-existing medical condition is and the severity of it, but effectively it will be underwritten and it will likely be rated quite a bit depending on what that condition is. But if you're healthy, I'm going to leave some links down below in the description that will allow you to kind of do some initial research on what your initial cost will be. So when you move here, you're going to find that there are two types of plans that you can choose from. There's an essentials benefits plan and there's a comprehensive plan. Let's start with essentials first. So really, the essentials benefit plan does what it says on the tin. It will give you coverage for the essentials. It will give you access to GPs. You're not going to have things like dental or optical care included in that. You might have a 6-month waiting period. You're not going to have access to the best hospitals either. This thing is designed to be low cost. When I say low cost, I'm talking 600 to 800 dirhams a year. I'll put the conversion on the screen right now. And pretty much the people that have it here are going to be the laborers, essentially, and for people who are on lower incomes, earning less than, say, 4,000 dirhams a month. If you are going to move here from the UK, I know that we all complain about how bad the NHS is. You're going to really have to ask yourself the question of, is an essential plan going to cover you for what you need? Particularly if you have pre-existing medical conditions, you just want some coverage to ensure that you can see a doctor if it's outside of your medical conditions, your pre-existing medical conditions. So I think it's important to remember here that you're going to basically get what you pay for. So it's going to be a careful consideration. The other one is comprehensive, and comprehensive is what it says on the tin. It will give you more coverage. You can have pre-existing medical conditions covered under that, but it needs to be underwritten. And again, if you do have pre-existing medical conditions, depending on what they are, it will be rated accordingly. But essentially, you'll have wider range of hospitals, better care. You're going to get more coverage, but it's going to cost you more. So anywhere between 4,000 and 25,000 dirhams. Again, I'm going to put the conversion on the screen here. The question to ask yourself, though, is that a good trade-off for the fact that you're moving to Dubai and you're not going to be paying personal tax? Now, that really depends on the situation, where you're coming from, how much you earn, your medical conditions, if you have any, whether you're healthy or not. Me, personally, I think it's a pretty good trade-off because at the end of the day, what I would have been paying in personal tax, I definitely don't have to pay that. I can just put it onto medical insurance, and you'll see that in the quote a little bit later on. With all medical insurance policies out here, you have something called a copay. Now, a copay, what is that? It's an excess. So if you think about your car insurance, if you have a claim where you're at fault, you pay an excess towards that claim, right? However, back home, with car insurance, you select the amount of excess that you want to put on your policy, then your policy is then priced accordingly. The difference here is that if with a medical policy, let's just say you needed to go to hospital for an emergency and the cost of your treatment came to 500,000 dirhams. If you have a 10% copay, you would have to pay 50,000 dirhams out of your own pocket. If you had a 20% copay, that's 100,000 dirhams. I spoke to someone a week and a half ago who had to have a hip replacement done, and his copay meant that he had to pay 50,000 dirhams out of his own pocket. So I think if you are going to move here and you're going through the quotation stages, you have to know the right questions to ask. It is possible to get these medical policies, these medical insurances without a copay. So explore whether that impacts your premium in terms of the cost that you have to pay for the medical insurance or not. That's a really important conversation. One of the things that I asked my broker was, well, because my initial policy to cover my pre-existing medical condition had a 10% copay, I was like, well, if I needed to go to hospital for this, what would the cost be roughly? So I could kind of gauge what my copay cost might be. And no one could give me an indication. Now, I know that the UAE is very, very different to what it's like in America, but in America, you know, healthcare has been capitalized, if you will. So it's run for profit. And it is well known that in the States that sometimes these prices for, you know, an x-ray scan is doubled because it's an insurance payout, right? So those are kind of things that were going through my mind. So in the end, I asked for a quotation without a copay. And the results were actually very, very surprising. And I'm going to go through those with you next. The cost of my comprehensive plan. Now, again, this covers my pre-existing medical condition, sickle cell anemia. The total comes to 8,821 dirhams, which in pounds is this right here on the screen. Now, it's funny because when I initially quoted with the 10% copay, it came out at exactly the same price. So it just goes to show that it's important to ask the right questions when you get to the quotation phase, when you're trying to source out your medical insurance here. Because to have no copay on my policy for the same amount as what the original quote was is almost a no-brainer. And when you consider the fact that, you know, back home I'm a 40% taxpayer, me paying just under £2,000 for medical insurance is, I think, a very, very, very fair trade indeed. And so look, if you are the person that has the same, you know, pre-existing medical condition as I do, you're looking to move out here, I hope this is kind of giving you some kind of confidence. I mean, I think ultimately, if I were to end this video, the important thing to ask yourself is that ultimately living here is not free. There is a cost to being here. This is one of the costs. But I can tell you from coming here for 10 years and certainly living here now for albeit a short period of time, it has definitely lived up to my expectations. It's actually exceeded my expectations. And regardless of how much extra it's going to cost, believe me, everything else that you get with it is definitely worthwhile if you can afford it. And look at where I am. Look at where you are. There is no comparing how it makes you feel every single day waking up to this kind of climate, being able to go out to places like this, relax. It doesn't cost anything to come here. I think the lifestyle and the exchange that you're going to get for a better lifestyle is worth it. But again, if you can afford it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land. Whole wrist covered up in ice. Dealership, never asked the price. I hit the molly ball with my dogs. Yeah, I swiped it once without thinking twice. Cause this what I was made for. Man, I know this what I came for. On a big stage, couple thousand people, and they do whatever I